Emma James, how are you?
Hi there, I'm fine.
Good to see you. Emma, of course, here with Media Watch. And as the counter-offensives begin against the Islamic State group, you've been taking a look at the diplomatic row, the fallout of these remarks made, we were told, by the Pentagon boss, Ash Cooper, regarding the fall of Ramadi.
Yes, it all started with those comments from Ash Carter.
Excuse me.
In a television interview where he basically accused the Iraqi forces of having no will to fight. There's been some surprise that there was such an undiplomatic handling of this scenario. Liz Sly, who is the Washington Post bureau chief in Beirut, tweeted this: given that Iraqi troops in Ramadi resisted the Islamic State for 17 months without help or leave, isn't Ash Carter being a bit unfair? Elsewhere, cartoons like this, the militant extremists rising from the grave as the Iraqi army run in the opposite direction, while the senior editor at the Daily Beast, Michael Weiss, had this to say: a modest prediction, Ash Carter won't last the rest of this presidency. Well, elsewhere, some are asking, is his position really that different to the rest of the senior diplomats in the United States? Some people pointing to this article in The Atlantic, which it's a very lengthy interview with President Obama, as you can tell from the recognisable silhouette there. They go into everything to do with the Middle East, the Iran nuclear deal and the like, but on Iraq in particular. Remembering that this was done just after the fall of Ramadi, he said, if the Iraqis themselves aren't willing to fight for the security of their country, we can't do that for them. Now, you could say that that's actually a very similar kind of stance to Ash Carter. It's just a little bit less emphatic and not quite so specific to Ramadi. Now, as this unfolds, obviously the US is now trying to be a little more on the diplomatic train, if you like, and as the LA Times puts it rather colloquially, Joe Biden tries to buck up the Iraqis, promises training and equipment. Elsewhere, Newsweek is also looking at this story, and it says the US is really trying to play down this idea that they see all of the Iraqi forces as being weak. They've spoken to a senior official who says that Carter's mention of a lack of will was only specific to the Ramadi retreat. They say there were extenuating circumstances. It followed a wave of suicide bombings. The Iraqi government has admitted that there were breakdowns in military command and planning, so it's not indicative, they say, of the overall picture.
Okay, here in France, efforts to rebrand one of the main political parties have moved a step closer. Do I sense the hand of Nicolas Sarkozy somewhere here?
Indeed you do. The UMP party has now won the legal right, as Libération's reporting, to change their name to Les Républicains. Now, it's not officially happening just yet because it hasn't actually gone before the party itself. But there were plenty of complainants who actually took legal action to say that the UMP shouldn't be allowed to be called Les Républicains or the Republicans. It's all to do with the fact that the Republic and republicanism is such an inherently French thing, and many people felt it shouldn't be allowed to be tied to one party
so in
particular.
a republic, effectively, every party is Republican.
Exactly. Now, if you remember, in the wake of the attacks on Charlie Hebdo, and there were lots of solidarity marches, they were often also referred to as Republican marches. Exactly. And if you call a party the Republicans, then automatically you're aligning yourself with a particular idea that isn't necessarily anything to do with
Stealing the
you.
headline, that's a very Sarkozy element.
Yes. And also the other criticism is that Sarkozy is always thought of as wanting to be American. This cartoon rather sums it up nicely. He's often nicknamed the American. He's also called the King of Bling. And this is La Vie en Républicain. He's wearing a Rolex, he's wearing Reeboks, but they've been slightly rebranded like the party wants to be. Now, an English-speaking article points out that it's not really that unfair to want to change the name because it is incredibly clunky. UMP stands for Union pour un mouvement populaire. Doesn't really trip off the tongue. So that's their argument. But obviously the members of the party are going to vote on this on Thursday and Friday. The leadership have already said they're all for it. So if it doesn't happen, this will be a huge slap in the face for Nicolas Sarkozy.
Okay, from one man who thinks he's a star to a real star, Johnny Depp, and the story of his dogs continues. Tell us the latest.
It seems like this story is never going to end. Just to recap a little bit, this is all about the fact that Johnny Depp, who is currently filming in Australia the latest episode in the Pirates of the Caribbean, he was told by Australia's Agriculture Minister, get your dogs out of our country or we'll kill them, because he had skipped the usual quarantine checks and all the like, because the dogs had come in on a private jet. So we got lots of cartoons like this one, where the Agriculture Minister is getting Johnny Depp and his dogs